Okay, let's go live. Okay, I think I'm live. Hi, everybody. Just gonna wait for the chat to... Okay, there, I'm live. There's sound? Yep, there's sound. Perfect. All right, hi guys. I'm gonna go ahead and hop over here so I can see the chat. This video was supposed to be an episode of B&B. We were going to dive back into this book, which we will get to. But, you know, sometimes I fall in rabbit holes, and I seem to have fallen into a rabbit hole. So I am going to pull you into said rabbit hole with me. If you are some of the very few people who see my stories over on Instagram, it is very few because they are heavily censored. You may be familiar with some of the places we are going to go here tonight. I'm going to expand on all of the insights that you maybe saw over on Discord if you're a Patreon member, or over in my stories on Instagram. And then I dove into the charts and the archetypes a little bit farther, so I have some more. And if you stay till the end, this video is going to get very politically incorrect. So I'm sure I will offend somebody before the night's over, but I'm going to try very hard not to. So we're going to go a bunch of places. We're just going to kind of like dive into screenshots of my stories and some charts. And yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me see here. Web screen. Yeah, okay, let me hop over here. All right, so here's our thumbnail. It's just another one of those rabbit holes. If you guys remember the videos that I did during the summer about, you know, CERN or the Georgia Guidestones, or like the whole Centaurus, Andromeda strain narrative, or the Hoover Dam. This video is going to be kind of like that. I am not claiming that I discovered anything. I am just seem to be good at pattern recognition. And Squirty, you need to stop biting. Stop. Lay down. Pattern recognition and connecting things together. So it seems like we're kind of in the midst of what I'm calling the winter rituals, which is simultaneously a culmination of the summer rituals, which were all those things I just listed. I have linked down below a thread of past videos that I have done that it would be ideal if you watched before this. You know, the videos I did on the Lionsgate, the videos I did on CERN, on the summer rabbit hole, because this video kind of piggybacks off of that. And so you'll have a lot more of the context if you watched those. If you have not, they're all linked down below. But we're going to expand on some of those topics here today. This is kind of where we're going to go. And by the end of this, I'm going to connect all of those things together. And let's see, is there anything else I want to say about this thumbnail before I get in? I just want to point out that, you know, we're going to talk about the rocket launch that was early this morning and how it is part of this mass ritual. The biggest rocket ever was launched by NASA this morning to orbit around for about 28 days. And, you know, I chose a picture here of a rocket going to Mars rather than the moon, because that is what this all really is shooting towards, is the future colonization of Mars and these like Mars Orion rituals that we are now in the midst of. So that's why Mars is here. I definitely wanted to point that out because that was done on purpose. And yeah, we're going to talk about these fuckers too. So let's get into it. All right, so I meant to keep the dates up at the top of all of these, but then I started holding down the screen before I screenshotted, so later they did disappear. But I guess I first started falling into this rabbit hole back on like the 12th, when I was getting this feeling that we are at the culmination point of the kind of rituals that I was zeroing in on during the summer, right? CERN starting back up, the whole Stranger Things, Kate Bush, TikTok madness, the Hoover Dam connected to all of those different weird Masonic things, including Masonicon and the Transformers movie and that whole thread, and the announcement of the Centaurus Andromeda strain connection. And, you know, I did all these videos back about 6 months ago, and that's usually how things manifest, is in these 6-month increments. You know, if you have followed along with any of my moon videos, you know, I always talk about new moons being a seeding of something that will culminate 6 months later at the partner full moon. And so we have 2 different culminations happening at every lunation. We have the 2-week culmination from new moon to full moon, which is like a little mini manifestation. And then we have the 6-month culmination from new moon to the full moon in the same sign. That's like the longer culmination. And so around the 12th, I was like, you know, I feel like we are reaching this culmination of that summer ritual, that like height of the light ritual. You know, I zeroed in on how CERN is very strongly rooted in the light half of the year. It actually only runs during the light half of the year. It sparks up around the spring equinox. It reaches its peak around the summer solstice, and then it shuts down in the fall and is closed all winter. And I was reminding everybody throughout the first couple weeks of November that we are coming up on another pass of America's Pluto Return and the Illuminatis, the Bavarian Illuminatis, Pluto Return, and to like go back and watch this video. Both of those, all of these videos are linked down below. That Atlantis one isn't, but everything else is linked down below. And, you know, I was kind of zeroing in on the election. I was like, what is going on here? You know, we had that eclipse on the blood moon eclipse conjunct the North Node and Uranus the day of the election, Uranus being this very erratic, unpredictable planet. And I was like, okay, something's going on here with the election. We've since got the results. Nobody has contested them yet. You know, the Republicans won the House, the Democrats won the Senate, but it was a really close call. And, you know, we still have the Georgia runoff planned for the 6th, but I guess it doesn't really matter for the majority. The Democrats, I guess, won it. But, you know, I was still kind of expecting the unexpected. I thought it was going to come from the realm of the elections, and, you know, it still might. I still do think we're going to have some states contested. But I was like, oh, isn't that really interesting that Georgia is going to be not the deciding factor, but, you know, we still have the election going all the way into December because of Georgia was such a close call, and, you know, they have the runoff there. And I was like, we were talking so much about the state of Georgia in the summertime. It was connected to the Guidestones. Stranger Things is filmed there. I went on that whole tip about how they have Atlanta, which is obviously named after Atlantis, very close to Athens, and how it's probably this focal point for this mystery school war, how Athens and Atlantis went to war before the fall of Atlantis, and how it's probably like a stage for them to, you know, play their little game upon. And so I was like, this is really interesting. It took a whole different direction. I thought a lot of this was going to be coming more from the election. It didn't really pan out that way. I still think Georgia's going to be interesting. We'll have to wait and see how that goes in December. I just threw this in here because I find it really significant. It has a little bit to do with where we're going here tonight. but I find it very symbolically significant. It says here that a Japanese company is planning to create an artificial meteor shower in 2023. The artificial meteor pellets would be launched by a satellite, which is already orbiting Earth, and they will burn blue, green, and orange. They will be brighter than the natural ones and visible to a large number of people. And I was like, okay, this is symbolic as fuck. It's symbolic of this inorganic, artificial path that humanity is walking headfirst into. Because as above, so below. You know, there's a lot of things I can't really wrap my mind around in the spiritual realm, but the Hermetic philosophy of as above, so below seems to be the only thing I can ever kind of hold my hat on. And I think they know this too. And I think this is, of course, a ritual. You guys know, I think everything is a ritual. Everything we do is a ritual, whether we are conscious of it or not. And this definitely is. So on the 14th, I started posting about the upcoming G20 summit, which was from the 15th to the 16th, which was when all of these events that I'm about to talk about here all went down. Hi, Leslie. She says, that's so funny. I was just at the grocery store and I saw a Stranger Things magazine and I said, quote, sometimes I want to watch it so I can see all the subliminal programming. I tried to watch it. Like Eddie and I couldn't even get through the first episode. It's super scary, dude. I can't do it. I cannot. And so I was like, okay, you guys, posted at 12:12, which is 3:3, which is significant anyway. So I was like, okay, so tomorrow, all of the world, at least it was on the 14th, I was like, all of the world elites are all going to be meeting in Bali for the G20 summit. Rituals are in the works. And boy, was I right when I said that. I'm just going to read this post here really quick. This was the post underneath this picture. This is a quote from like this conservative politician that I pulled out of this Secret Society book I'm reading right now. And it says, the world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. This month, November, housed a U.S. election which fell on a fated North Node eclipse. Our economic world leaders, a term I use very loosely, are all flying to the G20 summit. It ended today, the 16th. G being the main Masonic symbol other than the square and compass. Usually it's inside the square and compass. They were all going there as I was typing these words. It officially started on the 15th, but opening rituals were already in the works. And then next month, in December, we reach another pass of America's Pluto return. The Bavarian Illuminatis is actually in January. I break down all the dates in the video down below. We'll talk about them a little bit here later when we get to the chart. And so I was like, listen, we got a lot going on the world stage. Huge collective moves are being made behind the scenes, regardless, like by the governors of the world, right? Regardless of who you vote into office, because we all know that is just a complete illusion at this point. And then I was like, have you guys watched these videos, right? A lot of these videos are linked down below because I really feel like this ritual that I was zeroing in on is coming to fruition. This sort of shifting from the 2021 agenda, which much has already been implemented. We see it happening before our eyes. Most of that's already a thing now. And they're shifting towards the 2030 agenda, which is way more, has a way more global lens. Okay, so I also really want to point out what is going on in Iran, because I think it is symbolically significant of where we're going to go here tonight. This is one of the stories that I had posted on it. I don't know if you guys are aware of what's going on in Iran, but it is heartbreaking. I see a lot of people in the spiritual community talking about how it's a PSYOP, a CIA PSYOP, and refusing to lend any sort of energy in its direction. And I mean, I don't agree with that at all, regardless of if the CIA has started these protests. Women are standing up for their right to be seen and heard and equal, and they're literally being executed for it. And usually CIA PSYOPs get a lot more airtime, and this one really isn't. It's really not. I don't think they would be turning off the internet. I think they would be wanting to get the information out and really pulling at the heartstrings of the left. And I don't really see that happening like I have with other movements that were obvious PSYOPs, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and read this because I really think that this is karmically significant and kind of a physical manifestation on Earth of the rituals taking place, because they're very strongly rooted in the inversion and the erasure of the divine feminine. I wrote here, I wish I was shocked at how little airtime this is getting. I'm not. The fight of women for equality, for a voice, has always been silenced, more so than any other demographic. For they know that it is us who hold the key to their destruction. It is us who will literally birth the new world. My heart, my support goes out to the women of Iran. This is an area of the world, a land rooted very strongly in not only the birth of civilization itself, but also the start of monotheistic religions, patriarchal religions. It birthed all Abrahamic religions, and the origin point of that was Zoroastrianism, which originated in Iran. And I wrote here, the karma of this land is feeling the rage of the silenced feminine, and I stand with the divine goddess in all her glory. So I don't think that this happening right now is a coincidence. I think it's a manifestation, an archetypal manifestation of the feminine standing up for herself during her erasure, ultimately. Okay, so on, what day was this? This was yesterday. Yesterday, we all kind of woke up to perhaps the start of World War III. That's definitely how they wanted it to look in the media for that day. They kind of wanted us to think that we could go to war with Russia at any moment. And we woke up to the news that a Russian missile landed in Poland and it killed 2 people. I had said in my monthly video, my November video, that we can expect to see the World War III narrative ramp up because they have tied major events in that narrative, including the invasion of Ukraine from Russia, by Russia, and other key moments. I have them all written in here. To the passes of America's Pluto Return, which we are coming up on another one. It will be exact on December 28th. So I was kind of shocked to see something already. I mean, of course, it could be triggered by these eclipse cycles, aspects to Pluto, whatnot. But I was like a little shocked to see it already. I thought this was something we were going to see more in December. But it's definitely this time loop energy, this like echo, this deja vu of World War II. Poland was, of course, a focal point of World War II. And we see a lot of things repeating. I mean, there is even Nazis in the Ukraine right now wearing swastikas on their uniforms. Like, we are in a time loop. We are in a repeat of history, a karmic repeat, right? So yeah, I kind of said this was going to happen, right? And so I wasn't really surprised when it did. At this point, we were being led to believe that Russia sent this missile, right? Also want to kind of point out some of the effects of the eclipse. So both Taurus and Scorpio govern the realm of finance. Taurus very much governs the realm of resources. Scorpio, banking and multinational corporations. the realm of money, and we just got out of an eclipse season in both these signs, conjunct Uranus, who brings erratic, unpredictable changes, and we saw a lot of things transpire. This lovely meme breaks it down for you. Elon Musk's Twitter is sinking. The stocks are sinking. Meta apparently lost $700 billion. Amazon lost $1 trillion. Jeff Bezos says he's going to donate all his money to help fight climate change, which is a total psyop for another day. And cryptos, all cryptos are crashing right now. We have the G20 summit currently going on. This is lovely Klaus Schwab talking about how all corporations and governments and civil citizens need to all work together for their common causes. It's another one of his lovely New World Order speeches, which have been tied to these Pluto returns in the past. Real quick, I'm going to break down some of these dates. I go into this extensively in the video down below. That is this one, the Pluto Return of America and the Illuminati, the Bavarian Illuminati. That's linked below. I go into this in detail. I'm just going to briefly break down the passes of the Pluto returns. So due to Pluto's retrograde, Pluto will pass America's natal Pluto 3 times, okay? So Pluto has come all the way around the zodiac back to where it was in 1776 when both America and the Bavarian Illuminati were instituted, right? America in July 4th, 1776, and the Bavarian Illuminati on May 1st, 1776. Pluto just stationed retrograde on top of both of these organizations, Plutos, and have passed it 3 times. We're coming up on the 3rd and final pass for both of these organizations, right? So the first pass of America's Pluto return was in February of 2020. Right? February 20th, 2022. Okay, it was February 20th, 2022. And this was literally the day that Russia invaded the Ukraine, kicking off this World War III narrative that we know is orchestrated very much on the American side. We are already involved in this war, as we are usually with most foreign wars before we get into them. The second pass of America's Pluto return was on July 11th. And during that time, we had protests all over the world and really big events taking the stage. I went in on them down below. I can't actually remember what they were. But there were protests happening all over. The third and final pass will be in December, on December 28th. It'll be the same day that Mercury I have the chart. We're going to get in there later. We're going to talk about it later. But it'll be in December, right? We've also had passes of the Illuminati's Pluto return too, and those have had very significant events tied to them as well. The first one was on April 3rd, and every world leader around that time was doing these speeches where they all felt the need to literally use the words New World Order, whether it was the World Economic Forum, presidents, governors, everybody was just using these words over and over and over again like they were nothing during that first pass. And it's easy for me to go back to these dates and see what happens because we post everything in threads over on Discord, and you can search by date, and so I can literally look back and see what was going on. when the day that it stationed retrograde, which was on a Beltane on April 29th, that was the day that Moderna put in for FDA approval. The second pass was on May 25th. Yeah, May 25th. And the World Economic Forum was meeting in Davos on that day. And they had speeches about how we are moving into a high technological future where our phones will, quote, be in our body by 2030. That was their quote. Your smartphone will, quote, be in your body by 2030 was said on that day. They also bought a bunch of like monkeypox vaccines, and the EU started pushing for digital currency. Something else that was announced today was that New York is pushing for this like digital government currency that's similar to crypto and will eventually kind of be a one world currency, but it's starting in New York. And then we have the third and final pass of the Illuminati's Pluto Return in January 24th, 2023. So from now until through to January and February, expect big moves. And as you can see, it's already happening as I suspected. Okay, let me get over here to these notes. Okay, so, I said that we were going to hear more out of Russia. I really didn't want to be right about that. Like, I don't want World War III to transpire, but I definitely do think that is where we're headed. It's part of the plan, right? That's where we're headed. But yeah, I didn't want to be right about this. I said here, it feels like they are attempting to officially orchestrate our entry into the war. Because, let's be real, America has been behind this shit since day one. I'm sure this narrative will continue to wrap up, peaking around the end of December. This was just the first little bringing of this back up into our consciousness. I expect there to be more events throughout the rest of this month and through December, like I said, and through the early part of next year as well. And, this was Washington Post's fear-mongering post. A Russia-made missile, which is how they were wording it. And I guess, yeah, it was a Russian-made missile, but it was sent by Ukraine on accident. But a Russian-made missile struck the Polish town of, I have literally no idea how to say that, just over the border from Ukraine. The Polish Foreign Ministry said Tuesday that 2 people were killed. We've since heard, is this in the next thing? Other people have heard that nobody was killed and that it was just a grain silo that exploded. I don't know the truth. I don't think we can even know the truth. It says here, even if advertent, a missile landing in the territory of a NATO ally could be a pivotal moment in the conflict. Polish Prime Minister called an emergency meeting of the country's National Defense and Security Council Tuesday night in response to the incident. In a statement, Russia said, we didn't do that. NATO ambassadors will discuss the developments Wednesday, according to a spokesman for the 30-member Alliance of Nations. What's today? Wednesday. Okay, so they actually met yesterday, Tuesday. They met like right after the Washington Post posted this, actually. Definitely watch these videos. They're linked down below. Okay, so I was like, all right, what is going on here? What is going on? Okay, so then Trump announced his presidency. We already kind of knew he was going to do that. He was saying he was going to have a big announcement. But I was like, all this stuff is happening on the same day. What is going on in the sky? And so I started pulling the charts, and we'll expand on the charts as we go, because this is kind of this is how it came to me, And, I pulled the chart using the lovely Luna software. You can use my affiliate link down below for 10% off this fabulous software. It's like $4.50 a month or $32 a year, and it's a really great program. So I hopped over to the Luna app, and I was like, what is going on? I put in the I looked at the transits and I was like, oh, okay, so today we have Venus trining Jupiter. Okay, that was the first thing that stood out to me. Venus and Jupiter are considered astrology's two benefics. They're considered to be the beneficial planets of astrology. And when they get together, even through harsh aspects like conjunctions, squares, and oppositions, they're said to bring benefit. And this is not a harsh aspect. This is a very harmonious aspect, like the most harmonious aspect. It's a trine. These two beneficial planets are working very harmoniously in the sky yesterday. And if you are being led by an occultist to make decisions in any sort of way for the launching of key things like your presidency, a rocket, whatever it may be, this would be an ideal transit to do it upon. So this was just a little clip from something that I wrote over on Discord when I was leaning into this. I wrote here, it seems like everybody is really trying to harness the harmonious trine today between astrology's two most beneficial planets. Venus, which is currently in Scorpio, the realm that governs death, destruction, hidden agendas, open enemies, power, and the occult, and Jupiter, which is in Pisces, which governs hidden enemies, so open enemies, hidden enemies, the spell, the illusion, death as well. Both Scorpio and Pisces govern death. Scorpio usually is more of like a metaphorical death, and Pisces is more of like a literal death, but they can interchange. Jupiter is in Pisces, which governs hidden enemies, the spell, illusions, death as well. Unseen and hidden causes, secrets, fears, and our own undoing. And I was like, oh, this is very interesting, especially considering it makes a grand trine with Lilith, which represents the shadow, the repressed, the hidden. I was like, okay, hidden plans are definitely in the works and things are not as they seem. It turned out to be right, and we'll get into that later. So, Trump announced his presidency, and I was reminded about how he's like literally obsessed with the number 88. I mean, his name breaks down to it through gematria. We go all into that in this Lionsgate video. And he was even rated on A8 this year. We're going to have another Lionsgate video this year because I have discovered a lot more things, but that's a rabbit hole for another day. But yeah, he always uses the number 88. He's even only following 8 people on Instagram. 8 is just like his jam in general. And Biden's text to vote is always 33. And so I wrote here, this is my theory. Okay, so my theory is that 88 is a symbol of the Illuminati, particularly whatever's left or whatever is the modern day manifestation of the Bavarian Illuminati, the specific mystery school stream. I said, all you need to do is look at the symbolism of Trump Towers to know the man is initiated, okay? The tower is made up of like 7 pillars. There's an inverted triangle that's literally 6 by 6 by 6. The foyer is full of Apollo symbolism. We'll get more into him later. And Trump is literally, his family is literally from Bavaria. It's like literally where they're from. I wrote here that the Bavarian Illuminati is rooted strongly in Germany, which is Trump's ancestral home. And we know that, the number 88 comes out of Germany as well and is strongly connected to Hitler. And Hail Hitler, breaks down to 88 in gematria as well. And I said here that 33 is a Masonic symbol. This is not a profound thing. Everybody kind of knows that. But these streams have worked together for a really long time, but they have different visions for the future. And they had different visions for the past. Like the founding fathers of America were like really worried about the German illuminated influence coming over there as well. They've managed to kind of work together when they want to, but then they go through these periods, these battles for dominance. And we see this happen with even just like mystery schools that are, not as, actually they're rooted in politics too, but like even like theosophy and anthroposophy, they split, they fracture. People have different views on everything, and they definitely have different ideas for what this new world order is going to look like. And I think this ritual that is happening right now with all of these different moves being made simultaneously is multiple streams trying to harness this moment for their own success, right? But yeah, he always uses 88. Biden uses 33. Okay, so I was like, all right, let's pull some charts and let's look and see where these fucking asteroids are, because they always make so much sense. I pulled some more asteroids. We'll get into some charts here. I have like a whole bunch of notes here that I haven't read yet. Hopefully I'll get to those because I did take the time to write them. Okay, so this is from astro.com. I really, really do not like these charts. They're so ugly. They're so hard to read, but it's the only place where you can find the entire asteroid list is astro.com. But yeah, so first I was like, okay, where's Poland? Where's the asteroid Ukraine, and where's the asteroid Russia? Well, there is no asteroid Poland, so I couldn't put it in there. But I put in the asteroids Ukraine and the asteroids Russia, and I was kind of blown away at the apparent aspects being made. So like I said earlier, we have this exact trine between Venus and Jupiter, which is a harmonious aspect between astrology's two most beneficial planets, which is what I assume the powers that wanna be are all attempting to harness yesterday when they were setting all these things into motion, because they want to swing this T-square, which I later realized was actually a grand cross, in their favor. This is a very tense aspect of like conflict and tension between all these different parties we're going to get into here. And the harnessing of this, that was particularly yesterday, can really help to swing this in their favor. That's ultimately what I think they're trying to do, right? So yesterday, and still today, the asteroid Russia is sitting in a square to the asteroid Ukrainia. This is a tense aspect that represents conflict. There wasn't a Poland asteroids. I looked, I couldn't put it in there. But this is actually creating a T-square, or actually a grand cross, with Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces, which governs the realm of the hidden, of the spell, of the illusion, of the spiritual dimension, which this war is really playing out. And then Mars, which represents the planet of action, taking action, aggression, assertion, dominance. It is the warrior. And it's also the focal point of this entire space ritual and ultimately their end destination. So of course it was aspected as well. I don't know how I missed that at first. I was like, how the fuck did I miss that this was a grand cross? I don't know. I guess I was just like really zeroing in on this. It didn't take me very long. It was like 3 minutes later I came back to tell you guys that. It's very interesting to me that we see the asteroid Ukraine in opposition to Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, that sort of realm of illusion, that sort of realm of confusion, that sort of realm of the hidden, because that is what we ended up finding out, was that the missile that Russia over here was getting blamed for. I'm not saying Russia isn't doing a whole bunch of shit, but they didn't technically do that. It actually came from the Ukraine. I also looked to see at the time where the asteroid Truth is to see if we could get any sort of insight. And it was in Scorpio, which is the realm of the occult, of death, destruction, rebirth, hidden agendas, hidden enemies, open enemies, and astrology. And astrology really is where I can always find the truth that we cannot necessarily see on the surface of our reality, right? But the truth right now is very much occulted. It's very much hidden. It's very much rooted in secret agendas and the unseen, occulted realm. Look at Biden's face. Oh my God. How is this man our president? I mean, I said the same shit when Trump was president. I don't like either of them. But his face, they were all together at the G20 summit, right? They were all together already. They all just so happened to be together. And all of the G20 leaders held a round table discussion following the explosion in Poland. And they pretty much said nothing. They're like, Mr. Biden, President, can you tell us anything about what just happened in Poland? And then he leans in to the camera all slow and creepy like, and he's like, no. And that's it. It's so strange. It was a total stunt, and it was a day-long stunt to make humanity think that we were adding into World War III to get us worked up for their ritual that they were in the midst of. Because at the same time that all of this was going on, they were launching the biggest ever rocket into space. So we woke up in the morning to the news that, exactly what the transits were saying is that things were not as they seemed. It was hidden. There was an illusion. There was this confusion to the information coming through. And it was a Russian-made missile, but it came in accidentally through Ukrainian forces. I wrote here, I still think that this was a ploy to get this whole World War III narrative rolling again in anticipation for the next exact pass of America's Pluto return, which, like I said a million times, will be happening at the end of December. So I was going to tell you guys about this a couple of days before because they had been announcing it, but this launch had been rescheduled so many times. I just got sick of hearing about it. I got sick of talking about it, and I wasn't going to talk about it until it actually fucking happened because they kept rescheduling it. But early this morning, the morning of the 16th, at 1:47 a.m., that time is very significant. We will get there in a second. The biggest ever rocket was shot into space. So we have this rocket being shot into space. We have the missile attack. We have all of the elites, world governing elites, all at the G20 summit. Trump announcing his presidency. We have crypto crashing. The financial corporate market is a total fucking shit show. There's a lot going on at this time, right? So this happened that same day. It really was a big day. They were really trying to harness in some way. I wrote here, I guarantee you this rocket launch was part of their G20 ritual. It happened on the last day of it. So the first day of it, the 15th, was the Russian-Ukraine Poland fiasco. And the second day, Trump announced his presidency and this rocket was launched. They were meeting, was it at Davos? They were meeting during the whole CERN, Stranger Things, summertime thing too, but I don't know where was that? Hold on. I'm not sure. I don't know. But I guarantee you I was talking about it in one of those videos linked down below. But yeah, they always seem to be kind of meeting. Oh, where was it? I think it was Davos. Okay, so I guarantee you this is part of their G20 ritual. They're shooting a giant phallic symbol, the biggest one ever, literally into the cosmic womb. named after the moon goddess, Artemis. We're going to expand on this here in a little bit. I just want to finish these slides. She says here it's about a 3-week long mission. I dive into it a little bit more in the next slide. But that brings its ending, so the return of the space capsule, right around the time of America's Pluto return, so later next month. So far, the mission is going as planned, with Orion reaching orbit around the Earth and then firing its engines to begin the multi-day trip to the moon. So this rocket, which is named Artemis, the Artemis 1, is the biggest rocket ever, and it will eventually go back to the moon. And there's no humans on this one. They're hoping to get the humans to the moon in 2024. This one actually has 2 dummies that are strapped with like machinery to test the radiation in space, to see how safe it is for humans to make this voyage or whatnot. But it's bringing the Orion satellite, or is it a satellite? I guess I'm not really sure what the Orion, I think it is. Oh, it's the capsule. It's the capsule. Let me read this. While no asteroids are on board, the Space Launch Systems rocket carried the Orion capsule to space in a demonstration for NASA's lunar program. With Orion reaching orbit around the Earth and then firing its engines to begin its multi-day trip to the moon. So the Orion capsule is going to the moon, and the Artemis space ship will be coming back down, but then the rocket obviously projects itself off. Okay, so I wrote here, I guarantee you that this date was chosen very specifically. Mars, at the time of this launch, was exactly aligned with Orion's belt, like literally exactly, like literally right in the middle. And, you know, the date was chosen specifically. I believe it was delayed multiple times by like probably one occultist dude in charge somewhere. You know, the regular engineers and stuff probably were really confused. They were probably ready to go way sooner, and they were probably confused as to why it was being delayed. I guarantee you it was waiting for this date. Why? Because it's a ritual and timing is everything. So they say here that Artemis will not land on the moon. The Orion capsule will. But the spacecraft will orbit nearby before returning to Earth in 26 days. And so I wrote here, okay, so if it's going to orbit and then return in 26 days, including the day of the launch when they're like getting everything ready and prepping and doing whatever sort of like pre-ritual work, including that day, and the day of the return where they're like going to get the capsule from wherever it lands in the ocean and preparing its return back to probably the Kennedy Space Station in Florida. If you add those 2 days to this 26 days, you get 28 days. And so I wrote here, including the day of the launch and the day of the return, this trip of Artemis, the moon goddess, to the cosmic womb, named after the goddess of the moon, is 28 days, which is the length of both a lunar cycle, the moon, and a menstrual cycle. What are they using this to conceive? What are they using this to manifest, right? This is obviously a ritual. I wrote here because I am almost positive that this is a giant manifestation spell. The writing is on the wall. And one of my lovely Patreon supporters tagged this story over on Discord and was like, when you say the writing is on the wall, what do you mean by that? And this is my response. She said, you said the writing is on the wall. Where do we go from here, is what she said. And I replied with Mars, probably, because that's ultimately where they're trying to go. I said, what I meant by the writing is on the wall is that this is an obvious ritual. It's pretty easy to tell, especially if you look at the astrology. with the manifestation of probably several different agendas tied to it. We're going to have to ride the waves. Humanity has to go through its karma. It's going to get rough, and there really is no easy way out. I'm almost positive we are going to colonize space and already have, but now we're going to be doing it openly, right? Where we go from here, only source knows. I have literally no idea where we go from here. I'm just trying to read the patterns, right? If we can pinpoint specific ritualistic moments like this, their occulted or their hidden nature is affected just by us seeing them for what they are. It loses power. I really do feel that these rituals lose power when they are exposed, and that's why they try so hard to hide them and disguise them as other things to still get people to lend their energy to it and excitement, but not really know what it really is. And that's why, they censor my work so much, because I try to, throw a wrench in their whole game. But anyway, if we can pinpoint these moments, then their occulted or their hidden nature is affected just by us seeing it. I really feel it loses power when it's exposed. And those of us who are aware of such moments can then cast protection or whatever it may be, counterbalance it in some way. I'm more of the just kind of casting protection. I'm not really trying to cast spells back at these motherfuckers. I don't want to get intertwined in all of that, but I can cast protection for myself and against whatever sort of fuckery they're trying to come at our energy field, right? Definitely just wanted to throw this here. This is a video from the World Government Summit, which was back in June. Oh, I think this was during this was where they were, oh, perfect, I'm so glad I put this here. This is where they were meeting during the whole Stranger Things freaking ritual from the summertime and the CERN and all that. This is where they were at. And this is their own video on their own YouTube titled, "Are We Ready for a New World Order?" And it's fact-checked. Saying from Wikipedia, saying the New World Order is a conspiracy theory. Yeah, dude, it's not a conspiracy theory. This is real life, and this is what we're heading into. So yeah, definitely make sure you watch the videos down below. This is a post from Time Nomad Astrology, which is also a really good app for charts. I like it. It doesn't have any extra points, but it's cool. And this is a screenshot of the transits today with some more minor aspects. My mentor, Rick Levine, uses a lot of these aspects. He's really into sesqui-squares and septiles and these minor aspects that, make 5-pointed stars, 6-pointed stars. They are considered to be what he calls otherworldly transits that are more plugged into other time, space, dimensional realms. Time Nomad says that this is the current beauty of our minor aspects, showing 3 of the most occulted aspects: the sesqui-square, the biquintile, and the inconjunction, or the quincunx, same thing. And they went on to say something is brewing somewhere. And I was like, yeah, I definitely think something is brewing somewhere. All right, so I pulled some charts. We're going to dive into some charts. I have a whole bunch of notes here. I really did try to write some things down. This is the chart for the exact moment of the Artemis launch, which was 1:47 a.m. on Merritt Island in Florida at the Kennedy Space Station the morning of November 16th. This was right after President Trump, I didn't even call him that when he was president. This was right after dumbass Trump announced his presidency, and it is He's running for the 47th president of the United States. So he was the 45th, and during that time, the number 45 was everywhere. And the number 47 has really been showing up a lot. I know some other people have zeroed in on that. I'm not really going to get into it here now, but he did make a giant announcement when he was golfing the other day that he will be the 47th president of the United States. And then they launched this at exactly 1:47 right after he announced his presidency in Florida. So I found that significant. But this is the chart for that exact moment of the launch, right? We already kind of discussed how we have Ukraine sitting in a square to Russia, this tension, this conflict, sitting in an opposition to Mars, which literally governs. People say Mars is a planet of war. Yeah, I guess Mars is the planet of war, but he governs the self. He governs the warrior, like the warrior within us. Libra actually governs war. But whatever. Yeah, this is a very war-like planet, focused around like aggression and assertion and action. And we have the illusion very strongly coming through as well. I wanted to look and see where a couple of other things were, okay? Let me just go through these notes and we'll go through and we'll talk about this as we go. Okay. We talked about this. Okay, so I was thinking about, the summer rituals and the winter rituals. Stephanie says, yeah, something is up with 47. Yeah, what's that chick online? Maria 777 or something like that. She's like that conspiracy. She has that one podcast. I don't know, maybe one of you guys know. She's been diving all into the 47, but I can't remember her handle. Steph says, I have been stumbling on it for years. I put it off for a long time. It started for me in late 2013. Oh, wow. That's a long time. Okay, so I was thinking of like the summer ritual versus the winter ritual, right? And I think I summed them up. So the summer magic was harnessing CERN, right? And they were creating sparks of creation from nothing underground in the womb of the earth, because CERN is underground, right? And it's studying dark matter and dark energy, but really it has a lot to do with collisions and sparks and creation, and the creation of these sparks of life, this God particle, right? And so the summer magic was really about these sparks of life being created. And I wrote here the winter magic is being heavily this year connected to NASA. So the summer was CERN and the winter is NASA, through these phallic rockets being literally shot into the cosmic womb. These are the two giant collective spells. And then we see other things happening, just like we saw before with Kate Bush and Stranger Things and all of these little things. We see that kind of playing out with all of the weird things I just kind of laid out, right? Okay, so this launch is named Artemis, right? Artemis is the goddess of the moon in Greek mythology. She is part of a twin. She is the goddess of the moon, and her brother Apollo is the god of the sun. They are one half of duality, right? Pretty nice for them to finally name a moon mission after Artemis, considering all the other ones were named after Apollo. So really quick, I want to just kind of zero in on some of this mythology and how it is connected to some people. Okay, so as the myth goes, Artemis was born first. She was born first, and I don't know if she was like a baby or if she was born as a full-grown adult goddess. I don't know. But the mythology says that immediately after her birth, she became the first ever midwife, and she then helped her mother birth her brother, Apollo. So Artemis came first. It's like literally part of the mythology. But yet they chose to have Apollo be the first mission. The first moon mission was named after the sun god, which is an inversion in and of itself. The god Apollo, the sun god, is strongly connected to Trump. Like I said, you can just Google the mural painted in the foyer of Trump Tower. It's like this montage to Apollo. Hitler was also super obsessed with Apollo. Specifically, he really liked Roman and Greek mythology, but specifically Apollo was his jam. The number 88 is tied to both of them as well. And we know that after World War II, after we defeated the Nazis, which isn't really what went down, but whatever. After we defeated the Nazis, we took all their scientists, particularly their rocket scientists, and their entire space program. We took half of them, and Russia took half of them. And our entire space program, particularly NASA, was built off the back of Nazi science, as is Russia's space program as well. And Apollo is innately tied to that. So no wonder they named the first moon missions after Apollo, because they were definitely trying to put the male polarity first. We're going to see how that's kind of mirrored throughout here, but I want to kind of touch a little bit more on the mythology. So Apollo is the sun god. He is responsible for severing our connection to the earth, to Gaian consciousness. His mythology revolves around the killing of Gaia's snake or serpent. He slays her serpent, and then he steals her temple and her priestesses and turns it into the Temple of Delphi, the Oracle of Delphi. All of the priestesses now have to kind of like get high to channel Apollo, when before they were more sovereign. They definitely weren't getting high off fumes to channel Gaia. I think they were just kind of living and breathing that sort of archetype. But Apollo is innately responsible for severing the connection to the earth goddess cult and starting the solar cults. His son, Ophiuchus, is the archetype responsible for reintegrating that severed serpent consciousness. So while Apollo severed the connection to the serpent, Ophiuchus, his son, reintegrates it. Ophiuchus, I have a whole video here on YouTube. Please watch it on Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus is sometimes called the 13th sign. I go into it extensively why it should not be the 13th sign, because 13 is a divine prime number and it should only be divided by itself in 1, and it literally represents the 1, and it is not just a fraction of the sky, but it represents what the whole zodiac is trying to get us to do, to integrate the severed unconscious and become whole once more. And Ophiuchus is standing at the galactic center, taming a serpent, so that the two of them together can reach for the crown of sovereignty, the corona borealis, which I guarantee you is why they named the virus that, although the coronaviruses have been around for a long time, but whatever. Reaching for the crown, the corona, and crowning themselves sovereign, and then unlocking the galactic center, unlocking galactic consciousness that sits beyond the polarization of solar and lunar, light and dark, feminine and masculine, the war, and is a unified force, right? So Apollo definitely represents one side of it. It represents the patriarchal side. And so I wanted to pull the chart for the Artemis launch. I wanted to, we looked at this already, but I wanted to look and see where Artemis is, the asteroid Artemis, and where the asteroid Apollo is. I put in a couple of things here. Hold on, is there anything else I want to stay here? I'm just trying to go down in order so I know I said all the things. Okay, so first I wanted to see where Artemis was. I'm like, okay, if this is the Artemis launch, how is she aspected? And you can see that she falls at 12 degrees of Taurus, pretty much exactly conjunct the North Node where our last eclipse was, very close to Uranus. And what's interesting is that of all of the asteroids that I put in here that we're going to talk about, she's the only one who's retrograde. So she's literally inverted. She's literally moving backwards, and she's moving away from this North Node, which I found very significant. Real quick, I want to kind of just point out that the asteroid herself, like the asteroid itself, was discovered way before the Apollo asteroid. Artemis's number is 105, and Apollo's asteroid number is 1862. The bigger the number, the newer the asteroid. The littler the number, the older the asteroid. Of all the asteroids we're going to talk about here tonight, Artemis is the oldest. She came first, regardless of what these moon missions want you to believe. The divine feminine came first, and she will prevail. She will prevail. Okay, so Artemis falls at 12 degrees of Taurus, exactly conjunct the North Node, but retrograde. The North Node is the direction that humanity is heading. It's literally what we're currently in the midst of manifesting, and it's conjunct Artemis at the time of this launch. I'm not saying they knew all of this, but I do kind of think they knew some of this. Like, they have to, right? But, the archetypes speak. So just by things happening in the world, we're going to see it mirrored in the sky, because as above, so below. But I also do think they look at the sky to pick perfect moments when the transits are in their favor. And this Jupiter-Venus trine is really a super harmonious aspect that really helps to lend beneficial aid, particularly to secret agendas. Okay, Artemis, exactly conjunct the North Node. Fucking of course it is. Do you guys remember during the whole CERN thing? Kate Bush was exactly conjunct the North Node. The archetypes that they're using at the time that it's being used is literally aligned with the point that humanity is looking towards right now. But Artemis is retrograde, so she is innately inverted. She's not able to express herself in an outward fashion. It's more of an internal fashion, which tells me that we have to find the divine feminine within. They are trying to twist and alter our perception of her without through these rituals and the agendas that they set into place. But we're not helpless, right? This is something that they cannot sever from us. She preceded the light. The divine feminine, this is the moon goddess, so of course she's a different archetype. She's the mirror of the primordial goddess. And is more focused on like one half of the whole. She is definitely more aligned with like the subconscious and the like one half of the duality that is light and shadow, ultimately, which projected itself from the primordial realm of the cosmic womb of darkness of the void itself, which Artemis is a mirror of, but doesn't necessarily represent herself, right? But the fact that she is retrograde and at the time, this is the exact chart, is falling in the 8th house, which is the house of the occult, which is the house of astrology. It's also the house of transformation, of that sort of internal phoenix moment of our deep inner parts of our psyche and the realm of the mysteries themselves. So this is where we can find this archetype within our shadow, within our psyche, right? Hold on, I see you guys in here. I just want to catch up on this because, oh, okay, so somebody did know her. My Maria, okay, hold on. Steph says, yes, her. She's, JMC says, my Maria 777. Yeah, that chick. She's like really pointing out all the 47s. And I gotta admit, like, there is a lot. I don't always agree with that chick. I mean, she finds good stuff, but her perspective on it is always a lot different than mine. Everybody's saying that this makes sense. Steph says, damn, reminds me a little bit of Inanna. Yeah, Inanna is more, in my opinion, connected more to that like primordial goddess. But yeah, she is the one who kind of like balances the two halves within her to become whole again. But yeah. I want to kind of point out that I did not mean to point this rocket directly at the Ukraine. I wanted to use this rocket from Mars because that's where I think they're like trying to go to. And then later I realized it looked like it was like literally pointing at the Ukraine. And I was like, wow, that doesn't look good. I wasn't trying to do that. My bad. Definitely was just trying to associate it with Mars. But like if I flipped it this way, it wasn't going to work. There was no other way to put it. Okay. Artemis in the 12th house, we find it within our inner world. We have to find it within because it is being inverted in the outer realms intentionally. I wanted to look and see where the asteroid Apollo was as well. Apollo falls conjunct the asteroid Ukraine and the asteroid America in the 1st house. The asteroid America is at 6 degrees of Libra. Ukraine is at 25 degrees of Virgo. Apollo at 29, in between the two. Interesting that we have Nazis running both our American space program and helping fight the war in the Ukraine. And the Apollo archetype was so strongly rooted to the Nazis throughout World War II. So I definitely think a lot of that karma is bubbling up from those archetypes right now. But these are all very close to each other. They're considered conjunct. And America is sitting in opposition to Chiron, which is also retrograde. And when the launch ends and is like returning back to Earth, America will be almost exactly opposing Chiron. Chiron is in Aries, and it's definitely representing a lot of our core wounds that revolve around war and aggression and assertion and the need to dominate, right? America is currently in Libra and will be in Libra at the time of the return in opposition to Chiron. And like I said before, Libra governs war itself as well. And so you can see how this sort of Apollo, Ukraine, Russia narrative are tied to each other. It's hard to see here because they don't draw the aspect lines to asteroids in astro.com, which is one of the things that I hate about it. Luna draws the aspect lines to the asteroids, but they do not over here, and it's super obnoxious. But I can kind of put it, I'll just show you. Okay, so like Russia is sitting in a square to Ukraine and Apollo and America, right? And it's part of this grand cross with Mars and Jupiter and Neptune. So you can see how the space ritual and the Russia-Ukraine tension are superimposed upon each other. Like they're innately connected. And just the war between Russia and America was inevitable after World War II, when we were no longer allies, and then we started the space race, right? And we started to develop the technologies that we got from Hitler's scientists. And now we are these two superpowers that are eventually going to battle out for dominance. I think it's pretty inevitable. I don't want to speak things into existence, but I don't think that's like a far-fetched notion. I'm pretty sure World War III is on the horizon. Steph says, it's so weird to me though. Libra seems to be about balance, harmony, peace, and justice. Yeah, Libra does govern balance, harmony, peace, and justice, but it governs all interactions with other people. Aries governs the self, and Libra governs others. It governs contracts with others, it governs interactions with others, it governs interactions between countries, and sometimes to get peace or justice, it revolves around war. So yeah, Libra in mundane astrology governs war. People don't usually know that. I always like to point it out. Okay. What was I saying? Okay, so Apollo is over here, right? In the first house of the self. Artemis is more hidden and occulted and perhaps being harnessed for its rooting in the mysteries, that sort of eighth house connection. But Apollo is here in the first house with Ukraine and America. So it seems to be the driving force behind this, as it was from the beginning of the moon program in the 60s. Okay. We talked about that aspect. We talked about how America will be exactly opposite Chiron, our wounds at the time of the return of this rocket, which will also be right around the time of America's Pluto return, next pass of the Pluto return. Okay. Oh, I totally forgot to do that. We'll read it at the end. I pulled a card that I was going to read in the beginning for like the archetypal lens with which to view all this information. And the archetype that I pulled was the cave, which told me that we're looking at it from the lens of what is hidden, what is repressed, what is occulted. It also represents this sort of realm of winter, of the feminine, and it's also associated with Medusa and that repressed feminine wound as well. But we'll read this later. Okay. I just have all these notes here, and I want to make sure that I say all the things, so just give me a second, guys. Okay, so the chart has, Mars here in the 10th house, very close to the midheaven as well. Mars being the end goal of where they're really trying to go. So this next little bit I'm going to kind of go over here was all kind of spawned off a conversation with lovely Amanda. Make sure you guys follow her, The Birth of You. If you're not following Amanda, follow Amanda. She's amazing. But I posted, I don't remember, this story here, and she replied with, oh yeah, I watched some of that last night. And they were talking a lot about Mars, 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 inhabiting Mars, colonizing Mars. She's like, it almost didn't even feel like they were going to the moon. It felt like it was all about Mars. And I was like, yes, this is what this feels like. It's a giant Martian ritual, which is ultimately where they're trying to get. Might be a good time to mention this. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Gigi Young and her work. Highly recommend her work. I do not always agree with her interpretations, but, you know, she's doing great things. She has this fabulous series called In Plain Sight, where she talks about occult rituals that are just like straight up in plain sight, similar to what hi Amanda, similar to what we're doing here right now. Of course, she's more organized with her lovely editing skills and patience that I don't have. I think she's like a Cancer or Capricorn. I think she's a Cancer. But definitely highly recommend this series. She has done several episodes on just like, look at how beautifully it's edited. It's just so great. On rituals that are done in plain sight, even like how occult rituals work, the connection to blood and sacrifice and oaths and all of these different things. This is a series she's had out for a couple of years, I think. But lately she has been doing videos on the Mars mysteries. Particularly connected to how the elite's obsession with Mars, their belief that they lived on Mars before they lived here and that they're trying to get back to their homeland, the psyops in the UFO realm. She's done a fabulous job with all of these. I think it starts about here, episode 30. Yeah, episode 30. And she talks all about the elite's obsession with Mars, including the origin myth and its rooting in Nazi cosmology and the Vril Society and the ETs from Aldebaran, which we've talked about here before. And, you know, I think we're going to be talking about them some more later this month for our next moon video that sits opposite the Pleiades. I think we'll probably be touching on them some more. But definitely come and watch these videos. She's done so many, and it will help you get a greater idea as to why these people are so obsessed with fucking Mars. Everybody's saying they love Gigi. Oh, Leslie says she thinks she's an Aries. Really? I have asked before on her video. You guys know I need to know your birthday so I can understand you. I've asked in her comment section before and she never replies. And then somebody else replied with, oh, she tries to keep that kind of secretive, but I think she is a Cancer from this one time that she said something about her birthday. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Aries. She seems too calm to be an Aries, but maybe. Okay, so Amanda was saying that throughout this like 5-hour long live stream that they were talking so much about Mars, inhabiting Mars, colonizing Mars, and I was like, yes, this is what I felt. This was a giant Martian ritual. She said she only watched part of it because it felt awful, and I'm like, yeah. And she said that they also did this montage to women of NASA, and that they repeated this phrase over and over and over and over again in multiple different languages. She couldn't remember what it was. I went back and looked, and the phrase was, I am Artemis. I am Artemis. And all these women were repeating this over and over and over again. And I was like, why is this not sitting right with me? The repetition, the fact that Artemis is coming after Apollo. And I was like, they are trying to solidify the feminine as the archetypal second, as opposed to the archetypal first that she always was. I wrote here, this I am Artemis mantra is trying to put the feminine second to the light as opposed to the womb that birthed it. This is an inversion of the feminine, which we also see by Artemis being retrograde. Apollo, the sun god, came after Artemis. She actually helped give birth to him. She was his midwife for her mother. I wrote here that, they say this all the time, but they're really not super interested in getting to the moon. They want to use it as just a stepping stone for Mars. They want to make like a little moon base that then is going to help them get to Mars. Mars is their goal. And as we can see by all of Gigi's lovely work, they've been obsessed with it for a very long fucking time. And they actually look at it as their homeland. I wrote here that the end goal is to colonize Mars, right? This is obviously a Mars ritual. Probably with the end goal, perhaps being a declaration of war from Mars to Earth. So, once all the elites can get off planet, once like Mars is set up in a comfortable enough fashion for the world elites to get there, then we are much more in a prison planet, right? I wrote here as well that I think this is somewhat of a radiation ritual as well. They have those two dummies up there strapped with these machines to test radiation. I believe they already know the levels of radiation up there. I think it's more of a ritualistic act. And perhaps they're even simultaneously turning up the 5G frequencies or whatever sort of frequency infrastructure that they're currently bombarding us with, because we can see everybody really getting heavily sick right now. And I said here that this is probably a foreshadowing of the future. Once a lot of the controlling elites can get off world, then they can really turn up the space fence, the eighth sphere, the frequency technological grid that they are placing upon humanity without also having to deal with the effects themselves, right? Okay, so this is the part that's probably going to piss people off. So, I was thinking about this concept of this inversion of the feminine, right? The feminine coming second, Artemis coming second, the moon not even really being that important, going to Mars, Artemis being retrograde. And they are planning for the 2024 moon landing to have the first ever woman walk on the moon. Leslie says she'll be back to this. Oh, you're welcome. Come back when you can. And they're going to have the first ever woman walk on the moon. And I was making dinner. I was making eggs and bacon. And I randomly thought to myself, what if the first woman to walk on the moon isn't really a woman at all? As we can see from women being replaced in pretty much every field by a trans woman or usually a trans woman. Even earlier this week we had Miss America. The winner of Miss America was a trans man. Like, they're just replacing a trans woman, I guess is the right word to use. They're replacing us in every field imaginable, right? From sports to the Woman of the Year this year, to every single realm. And I was like, what if the first woman to walk on the moon isn't a woman at all, and that's part of their ritual? I can't say that that's true. I don't know, but it definitely got me diving into things, and I found some interesting things. Oh, this is Trump. Trump declares himself 47th president while playing golf. What a Trump thing to do. I mean, at least he's consistent, right? Okay, so I hope I don't offend anybody with this, but I usually just offend people. It's kind of my thing. Okay, so apparently the first woman that was ever in space was Sally Ride. And she was a lesbian. Now, I am not saying that lesbians are any less of women than straight women, but archetypally speaking, they are more rooted in the masculine polarity, right? They fall more on that side of the spectrum. And I find it interesting that the first woman that was ever in space was a lesbian. The first openly gay astronaut was a woman. So the first woman in space was gay, and the first gay astronaut was a woman. So the first woman in space was Sally Ride, and she was a lesbian. And the first openly, she was not open. Sally Ride, we didn't find out about her till she died. But the first openly gay gay astronaut was this woman. What's her name? What is her name? I don't see it here. That's Sally Ride was the first woman, but she wasn't the first openly gay one. I have her name written somewhere. Hold on. I'm going to at least quote it right. Oh, Anne McClain. Anne McClain. And she came out in 2018. Okay? And I find it also interesting that the only woman to ever die in space was the teacher that was on the Challenger that blew up. And she was a straight mother of two, a straight married wife and mother of two. And so the only woman to be killed in space was a mother of two, a wife, a teacher. But it seems like a lot of the other female astronauts have been a lesbian. You can find a long list on like LGBTQ blogs. There's been 59 women who've gone to space. And a huge faction of them are a lesbian. They're actually hoping to have the Mars missions be completely all female to avoid astronauts having sex during the journey. I don't mean to judge any of these women by their cover. I don't know any of their sexual orientation, but I know that her and her were alone in space for a really long time, just the two of them. And they were the first two females to do a spacewalk together. Now, I'm not making any huge claims here, but I do find it interesting the archetypal dynamics of the women going to space are strongly rooted in the patriarchal masculine polarity, right? And there's definitely a lot of LGBTQ, which I'm not saying is negative. I don't have any issues with them at all. Other than the infiltration of children's spaces, definitely have an issue with that. But I find this interesting. Especially the all-woman Mars mission, and that these things were just all kind of happening simultaneously with Miss America, and I don't know. I'm not making any huge statements here. But definitely it feels weird. This is the woman who's expected to be the first ever woman to walk on the moon in 2024. Her name is Jessica Meir. She was one of the women who did the first ever spacewalk with another woman. And I'm debating whether or not I want to point something else out about her, but you definitely get in a lot of trouble for this. Okay, I'm just going to go like this, and then you guys can screenshot it and read it if you want. I'm not going to do it. But I find this very interesting about her personal life and the personal belongings that she chose to bring with her to space, and her ancestral connections, which I'm also not making any sort of bold claims here. It just seems very ritualistic for a certain religion. Okay, that's as much as I'm going to say. You guys can screenshot it and read it if you want. Okay. So I feel, as above, so below, right? What they send up to space, who's up in space, the archetypes up in space, they matter, right? The fact that a mother of two, a wife, a teacher was blown up in space. And many of the other women, that woman, she's 43 years old. She's never been married. She has had one relationship. I can't find out who that was with. You actually can't find out too much about her personal life. She has no kids, and a lot of them, they don't. They aren't mothers. They are career women, right? And these archetypes have a certain energy about them, and it seems like it's very strongly trying to either invert the feminine or to make it more of a masculine polarity, if that makes sense. This is very hard stuff to say without ruffling feathers. I'm trying my best. I really hope I haven't offended anybody. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so I have these dice that I made, these sort of esoteric dice that have all of the astrological glyphs and some other glyphs that I use, including the symbols for tarot. And I always roll them during a session or a video to get a little bit of insight into whatever. And the glyphs that came out for this were really interesting, so I wanted to talk about them. The symbol that came out, one of the symbols that came out was just this circle, this clear circle, which I use to represent the light. I have a dark one for the darkness, but that one came out, and it came out strong, which really tells me that the agenda here is very strongly being controlled or steered from the light side of our consciousness, which is strongly rooted in the masculine, in our intellect, right? The glyph for Virgo also came out, which is where both Ukraine and Apollo are conjunct, which tells me that, these narratives are enmeshed in some way. I mean, we already know that the conflict between Russia and America is rooted in the aftermath of World War II and the technologies that we have developed since then. The glyph for Uranus came out as well, which just points me in the direction of this Uranus, which has a lot to do with high technology, our future as a collective, conjunct the North Node, and Artemis, which is retrograde, which again reminds me that we need to go inward to align with the true essence of the divine feminine, which is very strongly trying to be erased and altered and inverted and severed, even more so than it already has been in the past. The glyph for Capricorn came out as well. This is obviously where Pluto is right now. America's Pluto return is right around the corner. It's, working harmoniously with that Uranus placement. It's working harmoniously with this spell, with this illusion that's being cast here in the realm of the unseen. It's working harmoniously with Mercury and the Sun right now as well, and the agendas and the information that's coming out, because Mercury governs information. We also had the glyph, or like the symbol for the suit of cups in the tarot come out. So I have one for pentacles, wands, swords, and the cups. And the symbol for the cups came out, and it came out on its side, which tells me that the feminine, which the cups represents, it represents the womb, the water, our subconscious. It represents that watery realm that the moon, that Artemis governs, right? And what this tells me, being on its side, is that it's not fully inverted, right? We can still find it within, even though they're trying to cast these spells and do these freaky sort of phallic rituals and all of this shenanigans, right? And these twistings of the archetypes. They can't completely alter the fabric of our reality. They can't completely alter the truth of our existence. And so while it is inverted on a certain extent, it's only halfway so. It's on its side. It's not upside down. It's not right side up. It's skewed. And we have to track the quest to find the truth within, ultimately, right? Mars is also sitting right on top of Orion's belt, up at the top of this chart, right at the midheaven at the time of this launch. Mars was the other glyph that came out. This is the driving force, and it's strongly tied to Orion, which is literally the name of the space capsule. And these sort of ET narrative. Did we live on Mars before? Did we live on Orion before? These are things that the elites think and very much believe. And this is this sort of UFO narrative of our history that is being fed to the masses through ancient aliens and all of these different government UFO psyops. And Gigi does a fabulous job of breaking that down in her series, so I'm not going to get too far into it now, but this is definitely part of the narrative, is this Mars, Orion's belt, conjunction, it's conjunct, right? Mars is sitting in a quincunx to both Pluto and the Sun and Mercury. A quincunx or an inconjunction is what Rick always calls the pebble in your shoe. It's super annoying. It's super irritating. There's a disconnect there. And so this Mars midheaven and this Pluto return, they aren't necessarily working as harmoniously together as other aspects here in the chart are. So I think that's interesting, especially the sun right now too, and Mercury right now too. It's an annoyance. So perhaps their Mars mission isn't as clearly set in stone, especially considering how this Pluto return karma may play out over the next couple of years. So it should be interesting to watch that play out. Okay. So this is the chart of the projected return, right? Which is going to be sometime around November 29th. It's projected to be around that time, 2 weeks from now. And like I had said in those slides, if this was the seeding of a 28-day cycle, right? This thing was launched. It's going to orbit for 26 days. It's going to come back. They're going to bring it in on the 28th. Well, there's the day before the launch, the prep day, right? 26-day mission. The day bringing the capsule back is a 28-day cycle, right? And so if this initiated something, halfway through this, 2 weeks from now, we'll have a culmination. And so this is the chart of that time. We'll have America in opposition to Chiron. Venus and Mercury will be conjunct. They will be sitting in opposition to Mars. They will be sitting in opposition to Mars and in a sextile to Saturn and the moon on that day. It will be exact. I just picked the same time. I don't know what time it's going to come, but at 1:47 a.m. the moon will be conjunct Saturn there as well. These are strong aspects to the planets that revolve around like our interactions with other people, communication of information, and action, taking action. But they're going to be happening in Gemini and Sag, which has a lot to do with communicating of information. And so I don't know if they're maybe expecting some sort of like announcement when it comes to the end of the month. I'm not sure. Pluto will be in a sextile with Jupiter, and Neptune has been for a while. And yeah, Saturn will be square Uranus still at that time. And these are all aspects that we've been feeling for a long time. Saturn square Uranus, we've been feeling all throughout 2021 into 2022. Pluto return, we've been feeling for a long time. We have lots of long, powerful reality shifting transits that we've been experiencing over a considerable length of time coming to a head over the next couple of months. And so these narratives that we've been seeing unfolding, we can expect to have huge culminations here in the coming months. But this America in opposition to Chiron, it really speaks to the wounds of war and of our mutual destruction, which, if their narrative about Mars is right, like if we lived on Mars before we lived here, we destroyed that planet. It's also believed that the asteroid belt used to be a planet that we also destroyed. And that there was this like great galactic war of the gods that happened out in outer space with ET races, with Orion being the focal point of that war. That is part of this narrative. And so, we see this war manifesting here on Earth between, Ukraine and Russia and America. But this has a karmic ripple that most likely ripples out into the galactic realm, into other star systems that we can't even really fathom, but the elites seem to kind of know a little bit about and are trying to twist the narrative to fit their goals here. That we evolved on Mars and we came here, rather than the Atlantean narrative that no, we evolved with Earth. We had this pre-Diluvian golden age, and we have fallen into consciousness. We had fallen into our masculine polarity. We have fallen too much into our minds, and we have lost connection to our soul. And now we're working on integrating back into our feminine wisdom, which is something we all are going to have to commit to finding ourselves, because they are definitely trying to sever and alter and invert it. Okay, this is the chart for the exact Pluto return. Okay, actually, no, this is the chart for the exact Pluto return because I accidentally ran this for Florida. Okay, so this is the chart for America's exact Pluto return, like exact. I found it to the T, the exact minute that it becomes exact. So it's December 28th, 2022 at 8:13 a.m. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, because that is where the Declaration of Independence was signed. And so this is the chart. This is the chart of America's Pluto return, with Pluto at 27 degrees, 33 minutes of Capricorn, the sign that governs the system, systems of authority. It literally governs pyramidal structures of authority, of control. And Pluto is the death and rebirth, the ending of one system, the building of another. At the time that Pluto reaches America's natal Pluto, Mercury will be literally stationing retrograde. It will be standing still, conjunct Venus. Mercury, the planet of communication, of information. Venus, the planet of relationships. In Capricorn, these are relationships between other governments, relationships between the powers that be, and a sort of communicating of information coming out into the public sphere. Conjunct Pluto on that day. I definitely think the end of December is going to be something really large. This is all happening in the first house of the self, what the system wants, what that driving force is that they are trying to exert upon others. It will be exactly opposite Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, in the 7th house, in Cancer, the sign that governs the divine feminine, the mother, the womb, our subconscious, the moon, this sort of Artemis archetype. And Black Moon Lilith is there. Black Moon Lilith is the apogee of the moon. It's the farthest point in the moon's orbit, the repressed, the hidden, the far reaches of our psyche. And it'll be in opposition to this Pluto return. And so even though things will be being set into motion by these authoritarian systems, Lilith, the rebel who will demand equality and freedom at all cost, is sitting in opposition to that. So it will demand a balance. It will demand a balance here in some way. Let me see. Is there anything else I want to point out about this chart? Let's see. The sun will be in the 12th house. So that is definitely the house of the hidden. It's also going to be in Capricorn at that time, which governs those sort of authoritarian systems of hierarchy. And it will be in the realm of the hidden, what we cannot see, what we cannot grasp. So hidden agendas will definitely be an underlining theme of whatever it is that we hear that day, because Mercury is going to be delivering some form of information, right? Mercury will be stationing, so that information is not necessarily accurate. We may not actually find out until after Mercury is done with his retrograde what the actual truth was. Things are being done in the shadows. Things are being done in the hidden realm, and that realm of hidden enemies and secrets and fears and the archetypal spiritual dimension. Okay, let me see. Scray, stop scratching. I'm almost done. Okay, I don't think there's anything else I want to say about that Pluto return. Let me see if I have any more slides. I think I might be done. Oh, I put this chart there. I put the chart there so that I could talk about it. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to read the card that I pulled, which was the lens with which I wanted to kind of view all this information. I wanted to read it in the beginning, and obviously I forgot. Okay, I think I talked about all of this. Okay, hopefully this made sense, guys. Hopefully I didn't offend anybody, but I mean, I usually do offend people. Okay, let me go over here. And I'm going to go ahead and read this card and we'll call it a night. So I did want to read this in the beginning, but I forgot. I pulled an archetype card. The card that I pulled is the Cave you can see, come on, focus. Why is it, okay, it's so hard to like straighten it backwards. So you can see the feminine hidden there, right? Obscured. And this sort of light as well. It's a pretty card. I'm going to go ahead and read it. My sweater is like falling apart so bad, but it's my favorite. And I will wear this until the day that I die or it dies, whichever comes first. Okay. The cave. The dark, the portal, the interior. Those who are fortunate enough to find and enter the cave are forever changed. It is a place of potent power, acting both as portal to another realm and a space for sacred ritual and initiation. The cave is a place to return for meaningful retreat, where one can see the true self in the darkness. In esoteric teachings, the cave is known to reside in the center of the heart. Within its walls, the whispers of compassion and self-understanding can be heard. Yet, because of its mystery and power, many of us fear the cave and never try to find it. We busy ourselves in the bright lights of the city while the carnivorous and dimly cavernous and dimly lit chamber calls out to us in the night. Where is your cave? You already know. Return to it and tend to the fire. This is where you'll find that Artemis within, right? Slowly and steadily, crystals of enormous magnitude grow within the dark confines of caves. Let the cave teach you patience. Envision yourself as an old sage in a cave. What amenities do you need? What draws you ever closer to the cave within the cave? When this archetype is evolved, it represents the sacred center within. But when it's in its lower archetype, it represents withdrawal, isolation, and hiding. And so you can see how we can work to embody the higher archetype, finding this sacred center within our heart, within our psyche, where we can find our innermost self and that divine feminine within. But we can also see how that lower archetype is probably also manifesting throughout this time, especially through the hidden aspects. And it says to go deeper, you can read The Cave of Crystals. Okay, guys, well, thanks for being here with me and my lovely little rabbit hole. I definitely recommend watching the videos down below, especially the one that I did on the Pluto Returns. I go all into the dates and everything that has been tied to these in the past. And like I said, we're coming up on the end of this 3 past Pluto return of both America and the Illuminati. The end of December and the end of January. And we've already had huge things tied to the previous passes. Russia invading Ukraine, huge protests, this whole New World Order mantra, Moderna's FDA approval, the Davos agenda, the big talk of mixing phones with your body by 2030, all of these really huge moments. And statements were made on these days, and I really feel there are some more on the horizon. I hope we can get out of the next couple of months without starting full-blown war. I think maybe that'll come a little bit later. We're definitely ramping up the tensions, definitely ramping up this one world narrative and this sort of conflict. Pluto is the planet of power. It is coming back around to where it was at the time that America, a new power, was created. It's in the realm of Capricorn. And so the power can very much shift from one superpower to another, or this battle for dominance and power can transpire. And trust and believe Russia knows that now is the time to, if it ever wanted to make its move, because America is dealing with its karmic retribution of its Pluto return. So if there was ever a time to bring this country, bring America into a world war in the hopes of someone else, not America, winning said world war, now would be the time, because America's Pluto return has come to shake things up for us. So this should definitely be interesting. And yeah, I might dive into this book later this month. I don't know. I have a bunch of sessions scheduled, and like my sister's coming no, there's no way. We'll read this next month. We'll dive into this next month. Unless, of course, more crazy shit happens and I end up in another rabbit hole, which is what seemed to happen during the summer. Is it continued and then it just built up from there, and so there was a part 2. So if shit goes down, we'll have another one of these videos. If shit doesn't go down, we'll read this book. And yeah, we're going to be meeting on Patreon next week. I think it'll be on either Sunday the 20th or Monday the 21st. I haven't decided yet. Probably maybe the Sunday the 20th, because my sister's coming the day after that. And I have to clean my house. It's so messy. Oh my God. So I think it'll be Sunday. It'll probably be Sunday. And we're meeting over on Patreon to dive into the Sag new moon, which falls at the beginning degrees of Sagittarius in opposition to the Pleiades. So we're going to be talking, of course, about the aspects to that moon and the like underlying astrological energy. And then we're also going to be talking about the Pleiades and its connection to ancient cataclysms and the flood and the fall of Atlantis, or the pre-Diluvian civilization, whatever you want to call it. So if you want access to that video, now would be a really great time to join Patreon. The link is down below. It's a sliding scale. You can pay whatever you want. Like, literally, you can pay whatever you want. And all of the videos are unlocked for all Patreon tiers. I just ask that you pay whatever you feel like you can afford. There's different tier levels. Just pick one. But you'll have access to all the videos, even though it says on there that you don't. I have to go change the descriptions. I have like a million things that I need to do. That's one of them. So yeah, link down below. I'm also scheduling clients right now for December and January. And I'm doing sessions in February too, but like mid-February into March, I am going to be taking off. I'm taking all of Pisces season off because it always throws me for a loop. And I always end up having to reschedule everything anyway, because I like dive into the mystic dimension and then like come back up again, forever change. So I figure I'll just lean into it this year and take the time off. So I'm definitely going to be taking all of Pisces season off. So if you have been wanting to schedule a session with me, now is the time. December, January, February, I still have spots open for December. So if you book now, you'll be one of the December spots. And do I have any other announcements? I can't remember. I think that's it. All right, guys, you have a great night. Jeffrey says, I knew there was something weird about the Artemis launch and Orion. Yeah, something weird there. The Orion is very strongly tied to this whole UFO, Anunnaki narrative type of thing that they are floating. It's strongly rooted in Egyptian mythology and the mythology of Osiris, which a lot of these solar cults love very much. And yeah, the Mars aligned with Orion's belt at the time of that launch is very significant at the midheaven at the top of the chart, which is ultimately what they're striving for. Hold on. This is what it's all about. So like when you look at your natal chart, right? That's the projected return. when you look at your natal chart, the midheaven, the top of the chart, is the top of the mountain that you are meant to climb in this incarnation. They picked this time specifically. The midheaven is particular to the time. The time chooses the angles, chooses the houses, right? A different time would have had a different midheaven. This time was chosen specifically to have Orion's belt at the top of the chart and Mars there too, because that is what they're striving towards. That is what this is all about, is the colonization of Mars, this off-world civilization, this split of humanity that is currently transpiring. Now, I'm not saying like we shouldn't colonize space, you know. We're going to talk about this past cataclysm where, you know, Earth was like bombarded by meteors from the Taurid meteor stream, which came out of the area of the Pleiades and caused this Younger Dryas cataclysmic event that ended the last ice age and caused a giant freaking flood and then started another ice age. We're going to talk about that, you know, and how, you know, destruction is a thing. And I do believe that humanity needs to colonize other planets in order to survive. I just don't think that the way they're doing it is aligned. I don't think that they are spiritually developed enough to colonize space without spreading our war mentality out farther. But yeah, that's definitely what this chart was striving towards, is Mars, is Orion, is that midheaven right there. That's why this time was picked. Also, I think that 47 might be a little nod to Trump, especially because it came out of Florida. And the space realm seems to be, because, you know, the whole, I mean, Trump is more rooted in like the Space Force, the more like military branch of space, as opposed to NASA, which is more like he's trying to make it more of like a military branch because he really wants to actually like have war in space, which is the final frontier. And I definitely think if we start or enter into a world war with Russia, another space-faring nation, I definitely think that this war will end up being played out up there as well. So, all right, I hope this made sense. I don't know, fell in the rabbit hole. I'm not saying any of these things are connected, but they sure the fuck look like they are. It all happened on the same day, and I find it quite suspicious. And I wanted to talk about the mystery school streams. Okay, so we talked about these different like mystery school streams in previous videos, but this sort of war for ideologies when it comes to the different mystery schools or the different secret societies, right? And we definitely see this Pluto return happening for both America, which is strongly rooted in Masonry, and the Illuminati, which comes over from Germany, but has kind of made its way everywhere as well, just like Masonry has as well. But these sort of wars are playing out. And we talked about the 88 and 33. Okay, I think we talked about all the stuff. All right, guys, you have a great night, and I will see you next week over on Patreon to discuss that Sagittarius new moon, which is in my moon sign. So hopefully I'll have some good things to say. I will be plugged in to my psychic senses because the moon will be in my sign. So wish me luck, and hopefully I come with some profound insights. I got nothing right now, other than the fact it's in opposition to the Pleiades. That's all I know. I don't even know what aspects are being made to the moon, but I know this. I always know the stars just by the degrees. Oh yeah, it's on my mom's birthday. Oh, it's sitting in a trine to Jupiter. Be a good moon. All right, I will see you guys later. Bye. Have a good night.